To understand where the Ukraine peace talks are now and how the pressure on Greenland might shake up the power dynamic in the region, joining me now for an exclusive interview on World News Tonight is Gabrielius Landsbergis, former Lithuanian Foreign Minister. Minister, thank you for your time and thanks for joining me on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with the words by President Donald Trump. He said on Sunday that the United States would take Greenland, quote, one way or the other, warning that Russia or China would take over if Washington didn't act. What's your opinion on this statement, Minister?
Well, I think that we Europeans need to take the statements by Donald Trump seriously. So far, what he has said regarding Europe, most of the things have transpired. So therefore, I think that the pressure will continue to be built up against Europe, against Denmark. I think that the hope for President Trump is that the pressure will be unbearable, and and Europeans will seek for a way how to hand Greenland over to the United States. But I mean, the words of Danish Prime Minister have to also to be taken seriously. That might spell the end of transatlantic alliance.
I'm happy that you mentioned this because in opposition to that very statement by Donald Trump, we also heard from NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Croatia, who said, no, not at all. I think we really are working in the right direction. This stands in a very, very big contrast to what's been said by Donald Trump. What do you think Rutte means by the right direction?
Well, I think that he reacted to strong words by Danish Prime Minister, by other European leaders who who really are upset and anxious about the mounting pressure. His position has been rather clear since he took up the post. He tried to mitigate by diplomatic means any frictions that were arising between the Europeans and Americans. We all remember the daddy quote that he used in order to call, the way that he called President Trump. I think that he's continuing that as well, kind of trying to lower down the pressure. But I mean, he puts a lot on the line. If he's unable to, to convince Europeans, if he's unable to stop the crisis that is, potentially brewing around Greenland, then his, I would believe that his career might be on the line.
So on one hand, we have the US, which is undermining the EU's, so to speak, multilateral rule book, which appears somewhat increasingly outdated in a far more transactional state of things. What do you think will be the EU's new tactic to maintain the relationship with the US while guarding its own interests?
Well, Europe has to come to terms that it either needs to show up force and strength, or it will be forced to accept whatever is being asked by the allies, by the friends or enemies alike. And I think that we've set up the tone rather in a bad way. Just the last meeting of the European leaders last year in December, when Europe was supposed to use the Russian frozen assets. In one way, it did not turn out as a fiasco for Ukraine. But I think it was taken as a sign of weakness by Americans, by Russians, and by whoever is watching, because Europe was unable to figure out a decision that would allow us to not to use our own money, but to use our adversaries' money in order to support our ally. And I think that these examples portray Europe in a very weak position. And if our allies and Americans in this regard believe that Europe is weak, the pressure will only grow. So for us to change the dynamics, we need to show strength. And one of the options could be, yes, please go ahead.
Pardon. Showing of strength. I wanted to speak more on that because the Telegraph reported on Sunday that there are some military chiefs from Britain and other European countries that are possibly considering a deployment of a NATO mission to Greenland. Do you think that such deployment is going to take place anytime soon and is going to be enough of a showing of power to be able to deter any such ideas from the US?
Well, I believe that the mindset behind this decision is a bit different. It's not to fight the Americans, but it's to show Donald Trump that Europeans are doing their part in order to mitigate the threats that Donald Trump is mentioning. The threats from Russia and China, supposedly taking over Greenland, even though we're not seeing real signs of that happening anytime soon. So kind of to send British troops, French troops to say that, look, we're defending the island. I don't have a sense that would work. It might be a good example of things being done. If we're looking for some measure, but the other measure could be to offer Greenland a path back to European Union. Greenland left in 70s European Union in order to not to be part of a single market, not to adhere to the fishing rules. That could be a step that would tell, well, unfortunately. Fortunately, Europe has a way how to assisting its friends and allies in the closest vicinity.
And I wanted to ask my final question, because we've heard about the European Union Defense Commissioner Andrius Kubilius, who potentially spoke about the idea of a call of establishing a standing military force of 100,000 troops and overhauling of the political process. Do you think that we've reached a point of urgency when it comes to the situation on the continent where member states will agree to such a solution?
Well, my belief is that we've definitely reached a point where we need this, but I'm not sure whether we reached the point where we would agree on this. We've seen European Union countries having a very different points of view when it comes to European defense. Even take the latest NATO summit in Hague, where countries like Spain and even Belgium decided that they are not going to reach, or adhere to the calls of going up with their defense spending. And then you take countries like Poland or Lithuania, which are way above the 2%, 3%. My country's even at 5% this year, of defense spending. So when you would see the eastern flank countries agreeing to to military, a better military coordination, maybe even the European army in the eastern flank, I don't think that the countries in the south and the countries in the west would agree to that.
Minister, thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. It was a pleasure to have you on the program. Gabrielius Landsbergis, former Lithuanian Foreign Minister, was my guest. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
And so this would be all for now. Thank you so much for joining us on World News Tonight. And remember to tune in to On the Record with Adam Yasser coming up next, right after this show.